Hello everybody, how are you? I hope you have enjoyed watching the first video tutorial, the previous one. So in this one, I would like to give you something different. So in this one, I would like to talk about these new copy tips. So some of you asking me how I have to improve my models. Once time I've painted the airbrush, I've painted everything, the model looks blended, everything looks nice, or as I think I should looks. So if you are in that step, this copy tip video tutorial I think will be for you. So once time you have seen that model, so previously you can see that looks nice or looks okay. So for me was done, but in my mind works something different. Like, okay, I would like to put that model in a ice base, so in a really cold ambient. So for that reason, everything works perfectly, but I would like to improve, add more final touches, more information, and for sure play better with the ambient, with the temperature and everything. So in this one, I would like to show you all that kind of ideas. So now, what do you have to do at the beginning? So if you think that you have to add more information, why not add this kind of war paint or tattoos, something like that. So it's really easy and I think helpful to improve your model and maybe to improve your skill, because in that case, you have to paint just with the tip of your brush, final touches like some like tiny drops of paint to represent that kind of war paint. Then, if you want to add, for example, wooden scars, something like that, it's just like you are watching on the video. So you have to paint a really thin line, touching with your brush, as you can see, as you did it with the war paint, exactly the same. But then, in that case, in the middle or in one side, at the beginning or at the end, you will have to add again another layer to paint something thicker. This is just to represent better the depth of the heat on this wooden. As you can see, in that case, I'm using a color from Golden. This color is perfect to represent that kind of ideas because the color of this red, it's amazing for me. And it's satin or glossy. So it's depend of the quantity of water that you add inside. So then, for example, you can use exactly the same color to add this kind of glazing on his knuckles to represent that he was hitting something on a fight or to represent better the ambient. So in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you something really easy that I'm going to use just 3 colors, just that. And with these 3 colors, I'm going to add a lot of ideas, a lot of nuances, and I think at the end, if you will see the result, will look completely different. So for example, if you want to add this kind of blood, like bleeding, so you have to add water inside of your mix, like a glazing, and add one layer really thin with the tip of your brush, and then if you like it, add a new one. So the idea when you want to represent like bleeding, it's try to create like a triangle inverse. So near to the scar or the wound, you will have to add something thicker, and then as farther is from that, is thinner, okay? This is the key. Never a perfect line with the perfect size at the beginning and at the end. So you have to change that. Then, how you have to add blood on your weapons. For example, for that axe, I recommend you use a sponge with the same color, this color from Golden. It's really thick, so will helpful for that mission. So will be really helpful for you. So how do you have to work on that? First, paint just with the color from the pot. Will look really thick or heavy. It's a heavy body, so will be perfect for the first part. Then you will have to dilute a bit and do exactly the same in different places. And then add much more water to create like a glazing to paint with a sponge over that. And you will have this kind of 3 different finishes. Then you can add a bit of black inside of this to create something deeper or darker for the blood. Something easy like that. So you don't have to add crazy stuff. Just with a sponge and these 3 different size or finished, you will get something amazing like that. Easy. Then it's time to use the airbrush. How you have to use the airbrush? In that case, I'm going to use this kind of matte varnish from AK because works perfectly, plus this thinner, okay? Then with that dilution, I'm going to add exactly the same red to increase some tonalities or increase the saturation in some places that maybe you can imagine. So exactly the same red. So this is an example that you can play with the same color everywhere if you understand the idea, your final idea. Okay, if you see, always test the airbrush on a paper towel. You will see the dilution perfectly. So if it's something thin like that, works perfectly. It's better paint 10 layers than just 2 layers and destroy everything. Or paint with 100% of this color. So in that case, I would like to use that color to increase the saturation on her hair. Maybe in your mind it's like, why, Sergio, you want to increase more the saturation in that area if it looks so saturated? This is just for my taste, nothing else. So I would like to increase because in some places I felt that the saturation was a bit low, or I've painted too much light in places and looks like a bit like pink. So in my mind, doesn't work. So for that reason, I've decided to blend and reduce or change the saturation on that areas as a mid-tone with that color. And I'm going to keep this highlighting in some tiny places. But if you feel that you lose too much saturation, add again a color, different red, different orange, whatever you want in the place as a mid-tone or shadows to increase that. For example, I'm adding glazing on her chin or cheeks, just to increase again the tonality of the ambient. So I would like to represent something cold on her skin. For example, what happens when you paint spiders or when you spray spiders on your model? You have two options. The first one is in a light area. You have to add a lot of water with your brush and remove it. But if you has the spiders near to the dark area or on the shadows, don't worry, because just dry that spider and then with the next color, because it will be darker, you will completely remove the first spider because you will paint over that with a new color, so it will disappear. So now is the moment to use magenta. Why I've decided to use magenta instead red? So in that case, I would like to represent that model in a base with eyes. So if you have seen the model online, you will know what I'm talking about. If you didn't see that model, you will see that the next video tutorial will be how to make the eyes base. So because my model will be around eyes in a really cold ambient, so I would like to increase the temperature on her skin. How you have to do it? In that case, in my mind, I was thinking that if I play with two different ambients, not really warm, but warmer than this for the light, the highlighting, and then the midtones and shadows, something darker and colder, the most important, will work perfectly. So that means that she, because she's wearing less clothes that maybe should has in this ambient, her skin will be a bit cold, and I would like to add these nuances to represent that feeling on her skin. But the light of this ambient, it's warm. It's like a sunny day in a cold mountain. So for that reason, I would like to play with both temperatures. Only the highlighting will be warmer with a bit of orange or yellows, with too much control, but a bit warmer. And in midtones and shadows, I'm going to add this turquoise and this magenta and then turquoise. What places are nice places to add magenta? For example, the articles like knees, elbow, or some places where you feel that could be possible. So I recommend you always think in places where you have a midtone. never the highlighting. And never everywhere, for sure, because if you paint everything with magenta, then we look just magenta, and we want to have different colors on her skin. And why I've decided to use magenta instead of red? Because red has a bit of yellow inside, and magenta will be perfect for our mission. We want to represent a cold ambient, so she's freezy, because she should wear different clothes, but so her skin it's a bit frizzy and maybe with hypotherm. So this is what I'm trying to represent, like a hypotherm on her skin, but with a sunny day. I think it's something weird, it's crazy, but in my mind works perfectly, and I hope surprise you with the final result. This is because I would like to bring you more copy tips about different ideas. What do you have to do when you have finished your model and you don't know how to continue improving that? This is the idea. So you have the option to play with different colors to change the ambient, because in my mind, first, when I was working with the brush, works perfectly. So the color, love them. So was perfect. But then once time I've decided better how I should make the base, I've decided that she's near or around or walking on ice, I should add more tonalities like a cold ambient. So for that idea, I was playing at the beginning with magenta, and then if I need to represent more this hypotherm, I'm going to add this turquoise. So be careful with turquoise, because could change everything to something like gray and desaturate too much. But if you play just on shadows, will be a really nice shadow, because you are playing with temperature on that shadow. You are not playing with something darker. So the light of the skin always will be bright, or brighter than if you use something like purple or black, for sure. So this turquoise will have light inside, but because you are playing with the temperature, will look as a shadow. So this is perfect to play in ambients like that. If you feel that you don't know where you have to paint, remember, the highlighting, so over the model, you should have the warm temperature. In the midtones, you should play with magenta, because it's between warm and cold, and then turquoise only on shadows, or where you feel that you have to add shadow. Then, to respect or keep the warm ambient on the top, how you have to work with airbrush. You have to spray below the model, okay? Never in front of that or over the model. This is the trick. Then I'm going to paint something like a shape, something like that on her hair. What do you have to do? First, try to use blue tack or masking putty or something like that. So with masking putty, I think could works perfectly, but in that case, I was thinking that everybody will have blue tack on their homes. So with blue tack, you can work perfectly. So I would like to represent like a different turquoise, something like that, mix it with the skin tone to represent that shape. Where you have to start at the beginning, on both sides, and below, under, so the bottom, the shadows, never on the top, because we will like to play in the midtone with this kind of color, then increase on the shadows and respect the highlighting. So you will see these kind of nuances, like some places like grays, some of them a bit with more turquoise, and some of them like skin tone that you can see perfectly now in this angle. And this is how you can do it, really easy, and you will increase the information on her head. So remember, that video tutorial is only copy tips everywhere. So you can see perfectly how many drops I add on inside of my cap. So when you want to play with airbrush, in that cases, your model is done, you have to understand that the glazing with airbrush, it's like a glazing with your brush. So for that reason, I decide to play with airbrush because it's faster than the brush. So the dilution should be like 90% the dilution, water or thinner, and then a 10% of paint. If you feel stressed or you paint with too thick colors, try to add much more water or thinner than paint. So it's better play with 95% water and just 5% color than in the other way. Because it's better paint 10 layers or 15 than just 2 and remove everything. Always, when you try to paint with airbrush, I recommend you these steps. First, play with color. Always, color, whatever you want. Color. Then, something darker. Colors darker, but always color, darker. And then, something to increase the depth. That means that should be colors really, really darker than the previous one and deeper. So like violets, blue, greens, really dark red, colors like that. And then if you want to add something desaturated, it's later. Because once time you add desaturation over a black surface or darker surface, then you can't increase the saturation because everything will look darker to absorb the color. So if you don't like at the end the color, it's so easy to fix it because spray black or a desaturated color over the saturation, it's really easy. Okay, so remember, first color, midtones, then colors darker, then colors with depth, something darker but with depth will look like black, but always you are playing with color, and then something like black if you want to desaturate something. So for example, in that fur, I've decided to add a bit of black because I don't want to play with color everywhere. So I would like to keep the saturation only on her skin. And because I've decided that this black color, it's too boring for me or it's too cold, I've decided to add a bit of brown inside to increase the temperature. So you will see the result that once time I blend one layer, it's like that, really thin. But if I continue painting or spraying layers, I'm going to increase the depth. So you can compare both. The first one looks colder, like brownish, but with green inside. And then the next one like brown with orange or yellow. So this is just to increase the saturation or just a bit, okay, or increase the temperature. So something warmer, but in tiny places, just a 5%, something like that. You don't have to try to spray everywhere, always. You have to try to spray in tiny places to blend, to increase the color, to change something, but never spraying everywhere. Because if you spray everywhere, then with the next one, you will spray everywhere again. So it's like you are doing nothing. So you can see that it's just final touches. But these final touches, maybe the people will think that doesn't work. Maybe for you, your skill, it's like, hey, I can't do it because I did it. I like the result. For the next one, I'm going to try to do it. Perfect. Remember, I always say that you have to finish your model to see your own feedback about your progress. So if you never finished a model, never will you know if you are improving or not. So remember, it's not trying to have the best model ever. It's much more important. Finish the model where you feel it's done for you, it's done. Then with the next one, try to increase a bit. Try to paint something better or just focus better in one stuff. For example, the weapon looks nice, but you want to increase a bit the NMM. For the next time, try to put more effort there to increase it. Just that you have seen in this video how to increase the saturation, how to increase the texture, how to increase the information on the sword or in this axe. So you can add blood, you can increase the highlighting, change the temperature. you have a lot of possibilities. Once time you understand how to work with the material, you have 1,000 of ways to work. And always I said the same. Try to find information, look for information before to start if you don't know how works that material. Or just to find inspiration to check something different. Because maybe you feel that you always paint in the same way everything, and you feel that you have to go out of your comfort zone. So just find information about that and try to do it. At the beginning you have to copy them for sure, because it will be the best way to see if you are doing something good or not. But then once time you understand how it works, it's time to feel freedom and try to paint by yourself everything. Or everything or the stuff that you want to improve. So then it's just increase the inks on the leather to add something different with different finish. You don't have to do it if you don't want, but it's true that I like have in different places or different stuff, different finish. Some of them matte, some of them satin, and some of them glossy. Why? This is just for my taste. If you don't like them, you don't have to do it. But if you increase that, when you have the models on your hand, you will see all these different nuances, and I think works completely different when you play with that. But this is just my opinion. So then once you have painted the leather with the inks or finish the airbrush, it's time to increase a bit else the edge highlighting. This is something that I like it because you don't have to invest a lot of time, maybe now where you have done everything, or maybe in less, because it's just try to improve some places. To focus the idea that you have to see that places first, or to increase something. But it's just in tiny places. It's like repaint 2% of the model or 5%, no more. So you don't have to repaint and repaint and repaint. The idea is just, okay, everything is done. I would like to increase a bit else. So I'm going to paint a new edge highlighting, like in that leather belt, or I would like to increase the highlighting on non-metallic metal. It's just that. So you can see, it's just one dot, point. It's like drop a bit of water with paint, just that. But these final touches for me are the key, and I like them. I love them. So remember, this is your hobby and you have to enjoy painting models. So remember that this is the goal. Enjoy, have fun painting models. So you can see when this video tutorial has finished, compare the final result with the previous one, and you will see the result, how it changed. So these all copy tips will help you to improve all your models, because here you have all these final touches in just one video tutorial. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this one. I hope you will improve your skill and paint a lot of models in that way, and just enjoy with the final result. Thank you very much for your huge support. It's a pleasure to teach you, share all my knowledge with all of you, and I hope to surprise you with the next video tutorial about hair base, a nice base. So thank you very much and see you in the next video tutorial. Bye bye!